Hi, and welcome to week 2 of our service accommodation hotel high performance masterclass. Week 2 is all about research. So before we start on research, I'd just like to recap. So by now you should have watched week 1, and week 1 we focused on strategy. Strategy being your strategy and what you want to get out of your service accommodation hotel business. So if we just slightly recap on that, we talked about whether you are an investor and you're looking to invest in service accommodation, so you don't have the time, but you have the cash to be able to put into service accommodation. We talked about that. It could be your strategy, or it could be that you don't have the money, but you have the time and you want to be able to develop a service accommodation business. And that could be your strategy, is looking along those lines. We talked about management and managing people's properties for them. And we also talked about what we call rent to rent or rent to SA, where you're guaranteeing the rent on a property and then you're letting it out on a so to speak nightly basis from there. So that was strategy. This is week 2. This is all about research and really focusing in on researching your area. Now, this part of your business is really, really important. I can't stress the fact that I see so many people over the years that have just gone straight out and they've just taken on a property and they haven't really done any research whatsoever. They haven't looked at the type of guests staying in that area. They haven't looked at the type of property. They haven't looked at the location to look at what businesses are in the area. They've just gone straight out. They bought a deal off a deal sourcer and they've just gone and invested in that, and they've just got themselves up and running without doing any research whatsoever. So I cannot stress enough that you must do your own research. Even if you're going to buy a package deal, it's so important that you still do your own research as well. And hopefully I can just give you a few tips here in this very short masterclass that will kind of guide you along the way. And also you're going to be able to download what we call the profits matrix. This is where you can put the numbers into and it will show you the profitability of that particular property. So that will be available as a download within the Accelerator Academy for you after you've watched this video. So let's start with research. I'm going to break this down very simply into 3 areas. Area number 1 is the guest, and what type of guest are you looking to accommodate in your area. Number 2 is the location. And number 3 is the type of property. And I'm going to break each one of those down for you so you get a good understanding as to what you can do with your business. So now you've done your strategy, you kind of know what you want to be doing. Now it's about going out there and starting to research in that particular area. So let's start with guests first of all. Now we can break the guests down into different kind of sectors if you like. So we can have, very simply, we have a leisure guest, and we can have a corporate guest, and then we can have other types of guests that come in what I kind of band under short lets. So we've got kind of corporate, leisure, and then sort of short lets, and I'll go through each one of those for you. So when you're looking at your location, you need to be thinking about what type of guests are going to be coming in and staying in your location that you're looking at. So let me give you a couple of examples. Like, so say you're looking at setting up your property in the middle of Wales. So you're kind of like, you're just surrounded by beautiful countryside and you've got your cottage and you want to let that out as service accommodation, or you've decided to buy a bed and breakfast in the middle of nowhere and you want to run that bed and breakfast. So you need to think about what type of guests are going to be attracted to you in that location. So you're not going to obviously really probably be picking up corporates in that location, obviously. So you're going to be focusing more on the leisure markets. You're going to be looking at what's going to be attracting people into that location. So you're going to be looking at what are the local restaurants, what are the local attractions that are going to be bringing people into that particular location. The same principles are going to be applied whether you then come across into a city. Say you come to a city like, say, Edinburgh, and you're going to be thinking about, okay, what's going to be attractive to people to want to come and stay in Edinburgh? Now, we know there's festivals. We know, like from the Edinburgh Festival, there's a whole range of things that take place, festivals that take place in Edinburgh. So that's going to be a big attraction for people wanting to come in and stay within the area. We know there's a lot of history. We know there's a lot of culture. So these are things that are going to be bringing leisure guests in to that location. And it's important that you understand, you do your research and you understand what is that location actually offering for the guests that you're going to be accommodating. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So the other thing with that as well is then looking along the lines of the different types of guests that are going to be coming in to stay. So it could be a couple going away for a nice romantic weekend. Again, if we use Edinburgh as an example, they could be going away to Edinburgh for a nice romantic weekend. So what would be attractive to couples going away to Edinburgh? Again, thinking about restaurants and bars and attractions that would be focused in on couples. And then we can expand that out further and we can look at families. What would be attractive to families coming into that location? And if we take that one stage further, we could be looking at groups. So this could be sort of like, ex-uni friends meeting up and staying within a location. They want to kind of meet up. Ex-school friends. It could be a group of mums going away for a nice weekend treat because they really need that and they deserve it. It could be all the way through to, say, hen weekends or stag weekends. Okay, and would that location work for that on group bookings? And I'll go into a bit more detail about that in a moment. So as an example, if we look at Liverpool, so sort of clients that I've worked with in Liverpool before, we know that the market in Liverpool is very much about hen weekends. So the money is made really kind of like Thursday through to Sunday. But when the groups are coming into Liverpool to just have a really good time. So we need to then set up the property accordingly, but that's the type of guests we're going to be looking at maybe attracting into Liverpool. There's not a huge amount of corporate business in Liverpool. So whatever we can then make sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, okay, is really on the kind of like the corporate, the contractor side, which I'll go into a bit more detail in a moment. So, but the main bread and butter is really the hen weekends that are taking place. So again, that's using Liverpool as an example. So the type of guest that's coming in is really important to understand for your location. So whether you're remote, like the example I gave you with Wales, or whether you are in a city centre, it's really important that you understand the type of guests. So if we focus on leisure guests, we've got families, we've got groups, we've got couples going away for leisure breaks, okay? Sometimes individuals as well. So that's very much on the leisure side and understanding the leisure market. And typically guests would stay for sort of, you can get guests booking in for sort of minimum 2 nights, 3 nights into your property. Then if we take that across and we look at corporates, so the corporate sector, now for me, this is where I've always really tried to focus, because if you can get the corporates coming in and staying, like that just makes your life so much easier. Like leisure guests are great and you can make good profits from leisure guests, but the corporate guests, okay, their budgets may be slightly less, but they're just a lot less hassle. They're quite happy. They're traveling all the time. As long as they've got their Wi-Fi, they've got key access into the property, they're pretty much happy to self-check, check themselves in themselves, and they're quite easy, as opposed to leisure guests. They're going away, they want it to be a special treat. So do think about that when you're thinking about the types of guests that you're accommodating. So again, going back to your strategy, if you want to be more kind of hands off, then focusing more on the corporates or the contractors may be better for you as a person. If you're kind of like, say, like more like me, I really enjoy meeting guests. I love hospitality. I love finding out where people are from. I like chatting. So meeting leisure guests, I really enjoy it. They probably don't enjoy it, but I really enjoy it. So again, it's just understanding what works for you. What gives you that passion to want to sort of run this business, as we were talking about in week 1. So corporate guests. When you're looking at focusing on corporate guests, you need to understand there's 2 different types of corporate guests. We've got corporate guests that are going to be working, say, in the city centres. They're going to be like your kind of like, say, white collar workers. They can be IT contractors. They could be managers coming into a location. They're going to be there on like sort of set projects, coming in and working. They could be working at the local business park. There's a lot of companies now that are kind of like based just outside of the town centres in business parks. So they could be working there, and they're used to travelling. So a service department could be perfect for them. On the other hand, a boutique hotel where we're offering kind of that kind of like self-service check-in approach could also work really well for them, because they just want to be able to, have a nice comfortable bed. They're happy to just go to like a local restaurant and just buy a bit of food, and they just want to kind of work, and they're kind of happy doing that Monday to Thursday. On the service apartment side, they could be happy. They want the apartment because they want to be able to do their own cooking and things like that. Just want a bit more space. So corporates work really, really well. They typically stay Monday to Thursday night. They'll be staying on a kind of set budget. There's two different types of corporates. You could have self-employed corporates, so they would be paying for the accommodation themselves, and they would then be charging a set fee, like a day rate, on behalf of to the company that they're going to be employed by. Or you could have contractors or corporates where they are employed by the company or they're partners within the company, and the company would therefore pay for their accommodation. So in my experience, I find that they're a little bit more relaxed in terms of, because they have a budget. So it's always good to find out from the corporates what their budget is, and I'll share more about that when we talk about sales in a future week. But it's good to understand in your location the different types of guests on what type of corporate they are. Now, the other type of corporate is more your kind of contractor market. So this could be shop fitters that are coming in. It could be like, within the town centre. It could be a next store opening. The latest Marks and Spencer's has the latest refit, and there'll be shop fitters that will be coming in. They wouldn't be local people. They'll be bringing people in from outside. So they would need accommodation, and they're typically here for, they could be here for sort of a month within your location. So that could be really good business for you. It could be people that are working on like the utilities, so like water and gas. You see them up and down on every road within the country on a day-to-day basis. There's always a road that's being dug up. Then again, they're not always people that are from the local area. They do tend to come in from other areas, so they would need accommodation as well. And then that means we need to be looking at the type of property, which I'll be sharing with you in a moment on what to look at for that. So that's leisure guests, that's corporate guests / kind of the contractor market that I encourage you to look at on your research. And then we kind of talk about short lets in general. Now, the short let market is absolutely expanding, and it's expanding at quite a rapid rate. So when we talk about short lets, we're talking about stays typically of kind of less than 6 months. So if we think of like a typical AST, that would be kind of like 6 months plus. And then a tenant would be taking on that property under a tenancy agreement. They'd be paying all the bills themselves. It'd be their responsibility to set everything up. Now, there's a lot of people that want less than 6 months. It might be 3 months, 4 months. And that could be for a whole range of things. But typically what they're looking for is a flexible stay. They want to be able to just extend their stay if they need to, or they may be coming into the area on like a set few months. And they just want to know that all the bills included, there's Wi-Fi, it's clean. Maybe they don't even need cleaning on a weekly basis. They just want some like fresh bed linen, towels. They can get on with it themselves, and they're looking for sort of anything from like 1 month up to 6 months. So that short let market, there's a big demand for that in places like London, all the way through to other cities throughout the UK. Now, there are different types of guests that will be looking. So let me give you a few examples. It could be guests that are coming in for medical reasons. They may need specific or specialist treatment at the local hospital where you're looking at your location. So say someone like Cambridge as an example, they could be going to Addenbrooke's and they need to be close to the hospital. Okay, they may need a property, or they may need a room in a hotel where they know that it's comfortable for them. They don't have to worry because they're having specialist treatment. Okay, take that to the extreme. It could be, let's use London as an example, because this is a lot of what we're focusing on at the moment. With one of the clients I'm working with currently, and they are focused on medical for people coming in from the Middle East, typically Europe and Middle East. So they're coming into London. Obviously, they're paying, and they are having specialist treatment at various clinics and hospitals within London, and so therefore they need accommodation. So again, that happens up and down the country every single day. So that is a good market to tap in if you offer accommodation, whether it's a hotel or service department. Taking that to the next level, you could look at people that are in between moving house and they just need somewhere to stay for a temporary accommodation. So like 6 weeks, they just need some temporary housing to be able to go into. Their luggage has gone into storage, or has been held by the removal company. They're in between moving house if they're buying a property and they just need somewhere to stay for a short period of time. So it's a good market for that. And again, there's lots of opportunities about how you can get to these people, which I will share on the week that we do marketing. I will share that with you then. So So again, just looking at your research, these are other types of people. So it's good to see if there's new housing estates being built within the area. You know, there's particularly going to be new people coming into that area. They could need some short-term accommodation, okay, along those lines. Relocation, so again, if it's large companies that are bringing people in from overseas, they're going to be coming in on a relocation package. They will need temporary housing, temporary corporate housing is what it's called in the US. So if you've got lots of Americans coming in to the area, then temporary corporate housing is really good, because again, they're having to have their furniture shipped over if they're kind of on a contract for say like 3 years, which typically happens, especially around a lot of kind of government, kind of like MOD type contracts, where we work with the Americans, and they're coming in, and not just Americans, could be other countries as well, but when they're coming in to the location, they could be looking for like 3 years, so they would bring all their furniture with them. That would be shipped over, but they would come ahead, they would fly ahead, and they would need temporary housing to stay in. So again, that's another sort of market to look at. So when we talk about guests, we're talking about really understanding the types of guests that could come into your area. And so hopefully that's giving you a really good understanding, and just to really think about different types of guests that could come in and stay within your area. So a couple of areas that I recommend to just research. If you research on Google, just type in hotel occupancy within your area, just to find out sort of occupancy levels. Okay, you can type in types of guests that come into your area onto Google. You'll be surprised at the information that you can see on there. The tourist board is really, really good. It's a government site that have loads of information on. So the English Tourist Board Authority, the ETA, is really good. If you're focusing on England, that's really, really good to look at. Obviously there's Visit Wales and there's Visit Scotland. You could do similar things with those locations as well. And also the British Tourist Authority, the BTA. If you go onto these websites, now look, they're a bit clunky to use, but if you go on there and if you use their search box, you can find out a whole range of information about your area, what types of guests are coming in and staying in your area. So I really do encourage you to do that. So that's guests, and that's something I want you to just really think about. We're now going to move on and talk about location. So when we talk about location, we're thinking very much along the lines of the types of guests, as we've been talking about, that are coming into your area, okay, and really thinking about that. And I recommend to use booking.com. Is a great platform to be able to use just to get an understanding of the different types of guests that are coming into that area and the types of properties that are being used. So if you use booking.com and type in your location onto booking.com and have a look at the range of apartments and houses and hotels and B&Bs that are available within your area. Okay, so really good. That obviously they're free to use. They're really good tools to use, and I definitely really do encourage you to use that. So that's a really good thing to do. Just making sure I've covered everything on my notes. The other thing that I really want to focus on is within your location is the Chamber of Commerce. So the local Chamber of Commerce, okay, or the town centre manager will know if there's like a new shop that's being set up, okay, within the area, or a new retail park, okay, that's going to be happening. The Chamber of Commerce are going to know what business is happening within the area. So again, I know that some of my clients that I've worked with previously have had great success from this, of just literally picking up the phone and phoning the Chamber of Commerce and just have a chat with them and just share with them that, you know, you're a new business, you're looking at coming into the area. I'm just looking for some advice and a bit of guidance on like what companies are within the area, who's looking at maybe coming into the area, what's the kind of like, what do you see the plans for like the growth of the area over the coming years, and they are really helpful. That's in my experience. I found that to be like really useful, just to find out, especially if you're saying that you're like you're new and you're starting off a business within that location. It's great valuable research, so I definitely encourage you to do that. Okay, so yeah, I hope that helps. So the other thing that I just now want to touch on is then thinking about when we talk about location is the type of, if you like, I suppose, rental properties, okay? And I want you to just get a good understanding within your area of the different types of properties that are being used. So we mentioned there about booking.com. Just expand that search a little bit wider, okay? And just have a look on places like Airbnb, home away, because these are bringing in could be potentially slightly different guests into your location. Okay, Booking.com is very focused on, is kind of very much like guests are staying in like a service apartment, house, or a hotel. Okay, whereas Airbnb has come from that kind of like sharing platform of like renting out your room, and it's kind of expanded and developed along those lines. So they're kind of both coming from a slightly different angle. So it's good to understand the different types of properties that guests have the choice of staying in within your location. So moving on now to property and understanding the type of property that you may be looking at acquiring. So when we talk about property, there's different ways that you can look at this. So you may be a landlord currently, and you have some property already that you've been letting on a long-term buy-to-let basis, and you're thinking that you'd like to try these properties to try and create more cash flow for your properties. And that's absolutely fine. So by doing the research we've kind of gone through, okay, we'll then start to determine where your property fits. Because really what you're trying to do is you've got your property already, and now you're trying to find the right type of guest to fit into your property. So if you've got, say, a 1-bedroom apartment in the city centre, then that's not obviously going to work for your contractor market, where they're looking at sort of like a number of beds in a room. So that would be more for your, as I said, like your kind of like your corporates coming in and working within the area, or it could be for the couples, okay, coming in, or maybe a small family, because you have a sofa bed and a double bed. It's, let's say, a 1-bedroom property. So if you've got your property already, you've got to understand the type of guest that's going to come and stay in that property. If we take that to the next level and we think about a house, so let's say you've got a 4-bedroom house that you have, and it sits just slightly outside the town centre, okay, then that could appeal to the contractor market. So you could be then thinking more along the lines of setting that property up with single beds in, focusing more on the contractors that are coming in to stay within the area, where they just need somewhere like they can park their van on the drive, so they know, because they've got their tools in the back, it's nice and safe, and they can stay inside and they can go to the local pub or do a bit of cooking inside if that's what they want to do. So if you have a house, then it's thinking about what types of guests could come in and stay. So it could be contractors, it could be families, it could be the groups on the leisure side that we spoke about. Okay, so if you've got your property already, then it's understanding what types of guests are going to come and stay in your property. If you don't have a property and you're looking at starting out, or you're looking at a new location, then again, this links in line with your strategy. If you're thinking of now investing in a property, then I recommend doing it initially on a lease basis, or rent to rent basis, or rent to SA basis. Okay, where you're gonna rent a property and you're gonna guarantee that rent to the landlord, and then you're going to then have that property let out on a short let basis from there. Now, whether you manage it and you do it and you become the operator, or not is up to you, okay? But what I'm trying to share with you is that it's important that you then think about the type of property that you're going to be taking on, for the type of guest that's going to be coming in to stay. And that's where the research bit is really important. And going back to what I said right at the very beginning, it's where I see a lot of people fall over, because they get offered deals by a sourcer, and the deal could really stack up really well, but unless you really understand the guests that are coming in and staying, okay, it could be completely the wrong type of property that you're going to be kind of signing up to. So it's really important that you just do a little bit of due diligence, do your research, just understand, you know, as a guest, what type of property would you be looking at staying, and wear different hats, whether you're a leisure guest or a corporate guest, or what have you. So you could have a 1-bedroom apartment. It could be an apartment that's like within a block. Obviously that comes with its challenges, because you've got to be mindful of, there will be a head lease that sits over that apartment, okay, and there will be a property management, a block management company that will be managing that property. And so therefore you've got to make sure that it complies, that legally you can run that property doing short lets, okay? Please don't take on a property, okay, unless you've checked, okay, with the block management company that it says within the head lease, okay? So if it says nothing in there, if it doesn't mention about short lets, then that's okay, in my opinion, okay? If it says in there no short lets allowed, then obviously, you know, just keep away. There's plenty of other properties. Don't try and sort of take a property on like that, because it will come back to you, and then you're going to end up spending a lot of money, and it's going to go wrong for you, okay? So you could be looking at a property that could be with a local developer, And it's definitely worthwhile walking the streets and looking at what properties are available and what developments are happening locally. It could be like a kind of a local pub conversion. It could be like a shop front, and then there's like some apartments above that are being converted into residential. Okay, so what I recommend is like try and make contact with those developers or those landlords, okay, and see if you can try and structure some kind of deal with them. And again, I'll go through that in a future week with you, but that's a good idea on your research side, is just to understand what developments are taking place in the area. Okay, it could be a large development, and then they may be quite happy for you to do service accommodation, again, if it's within the head lease. Now, if you have a house, then it's a freehold property and you don't have to worry about obviously the head lease. So with a house, then you're absolutely fine to be able to run that as serviced accommodation. There are some caveats which I'm going to go through now with you. But you can run that property because you own the freehold, okay, or the landlord owns the freehold to that property. You're going to take it on, you're going to rent that property off of them, and therefore you can run that on a short let basis. So I really hope that this is helpful and really gets you thinking about what you're trying to do with your service accommodation business, or if you're looking at a hotel, what you're going to do with that. And that's the next bit I want to kind of focus in on, because it's important that you understand the planning class. So when we talk about residential property, under planning terms, this is called C3. So a C3 property is residential. Okay, so you've got to be really mindful that, so let's take London as an example. Okay, London has a rule. It only applies to London at the moment, but it is slowly looking at being not rolled out into other locations, but other authorities, local authorities, are looking at trying to control the whole kind of Airbnb success, if you like, okay, and trying to make it just a bit more kind of compliant and a bit more kind of under control. So at the moment, if you've got a C3 property that's residential, okay, and you're in London, then you are only allowed to let that property for up to 90 days within a calendar year, on a short let basis. So the first 90 days you could do one night stays, and then from day 91 all the way through to 365, you have to have that let out for longer than 90 days each stay. So you could have, like, say, 3 stays with 91 days each. You could have a 6-month stay and then a 91-day stay, like a 6-month stay and a 3-month stay. Okay, so you're only allowed to do that in London if it's on a C3 basis. Okay, so as I said, this doesn't apply at the moment outside of London, but it will do. So that places like Dublin now have a rule in place. They have legislation in place that doesn't allow you. They have a very similar type of model to London. We're looking at Edinburgh. We're looking at Cambridge. There are legislation now coming into place in these places. So it's only going to be a matter of time. Okay, it could be in the next year, it could be within the next 5 years. So we don't know, okay, but just be mindful of that if you're taking on property. So my recommendation to you is houses do work really well, okay, because you've got the freehold property. That's the first thing. And being able to be involved with, say, a block. And when I say a block, you might go, whoa, hang on a minute, Lee, I can't take on a whole block. So I haven't started yet, but just like a small block of apartment, maybe like 3 apartments above the shop, like I was just sharing with you a moment ago, okay, where you've got a bit more control, okay, taking on 1 apartment within a large block of apartments, okay, and you're just 1 apartment within a large block for doing short lets, okay. A lot of people do that. I've done that many, many times over the years, okay? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but just be mindful, okay, that there's going to be longer term residents around you within that larger block. So you may want to go more niche, more boutique, okay? Or you may consider looking at small hotels and bed and breakfasts. Now, this is an area that I'm really focused on. I think there's huge opportunity here. This is my strategy for right now, and that's looking at acquiring with my investors small bed and breakfasts where we can repurpose the space, like the kitchen, dining area, owners accommodation, and create these self-service boutique smart hotels. Okay, the beauty with the boutique hotel or the bed and breakfast or the small hotel is that they have C1 planning class in place. So C1 means that you can let on a nightly basis. Okay, so there's thousands, there's 22,000 B&Bs, okay, with less than 10 rooms within the UK right now. Okay, Now, this is a market that is struggling because of the success of Airbnb. Okay, so it may be something you want to think about. I will share a lot more detail about this in a future masterclass with you, okay, if that's of interest to you. If you can't wait for that and you want to have a chat, then just reach out, just message me, and I'll be really happy to have a chat about that, because it's my true passion at the moment. And so you may consider looking at C1 properties. That's where I'm trying to go with this, okay? You may consider looking at a C3 property. You get it up and running, you try it, you get it working, and then you may want to go in for planning and change it over from C3 to C1. Now, obviously, there's various things you need to think of around that in terms of valuations and things, because C1 is obviously based around a business, C3 is based around, obviously, the residential, so the pound per square foot is going to change. So it's just things you've got to think about, okay? But when you're looking at property, okay, and you're looking in your area, then you want to really be thinking about, you know, are you looking at C1? Are you looking at C3? Are you looking at an apartment? Are you looking at a house? Are you looking at a small block of apartments? So I probably really confuse you now, because that's quite in depth what we've just kind of been through there. But if we bring it right the way back, okay, what I want you to think about with your research, okay, are the 3 areas. I want you to think about the type of guest that you're going to be accommodating. I want you to think about the location and the type of guest that's going to stay in that location, okay? And it doesn't have to be right on your doorstep. You know, if you're partnering with someone, if you're doing a JV, it could be in a different location. I probably recommend try and keep it within about an hour of where you live, so you can get to the property, because I think it's important to start with, even if you don't really want to be too involved, that you still try and understand this business, understand what it's all about, okay? You know, because if things do go wrong, and they do go wrong, at least you understand how this business works, okay? So that's location, and it's really important, number 3, to think about the type of property that you want to place those guests into. So whether it's contractors and you want a 4-bed house, or you want to do hen weekends in Liverpool, and you're looking at sort of like houses and larger apartments where you can get more people into, that's fantastic. Or you may be looking at sort of like that kind of boutique, small hotel that does sit in the middle of the countryside, and you're going to build up a really nice brand around that sort of business. So I really hope research has been useful for you. I hope that's given you a lot of insight into what you really should be thinking about, okay? And I do encourage you to really think about it as you develop your service accommodation business, you know, or hotel business. I can't stress enough, don't rush into this. Just take your time, research, understand, okay, exactly how this all works. I can't stress that enough for you to do that. There will be the profit matrix for you to be able to download, which is a template where you can plug your numbers into and see how profitable your property is. So the final thing that I'm going to share with you now is that I want you to be able to go onto Rightmove and understand what sort of properties are in your area, okay, on a rental basis. So you've got a good understanding to what sort of prices you're going to be paying if you're going to be doing this on a kind of a rent to SA type model, whether that's a house or whether that's an apartment. So that's your homework. There's your prep. Okay. Good luck. I'm here if you need me. We've got a fantastic group within the academy. Do ask your questions. Okay. There's a lot of established people within this group, and I know there's a lot of people that are looking at starting out. So ask your questions. We're all in this together. We want to all create a high performance serviced accommodation hotel business, and let's work together to really make that happen. So my name's Lee Pemberton. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to sharing week 3 with you. Thank you.